All right, we're going to try 1.3, number 5. I'm going to read it to you. And, okay, find the 6 trigonometric function values for the angle theta in standard position if the terminal side of theta is defined by this linear line, this linear equation, x plus 2y equals 0, and x is going to be bigger than or equal to 0. That's important. So for this one, we're going to have to graph this line. Okay, we're going to do that together. In the previous ones, 2, 3, and 4, they gave us points, and we didn't have to graph a line. Like 815, we just graphed 815, and then we did it from there. -3, -4, we graphed that, and we did it from there. But now we have to graph a line. So let's get some space to do this. We were given x plus 2y equals 0, and x is going to be greater than or equal to 0. So we're going to graph that linear equation. Get y equals mx plus b. So if you're in this class, you've taken some algebra. This is our slope and our y-intercept, okay? Zoom in a little bit better. Okay, we want this format. So I have x plus 2y equals 0. Let's move this x to that side. So I'm going to have 2y equals negative x plus 0. Then I'm going to divide by 2. So I divide everything by 2. Y equals negative 1/2, okay, x. So I divided by 2, plus 0 over 2 is just 0. So my y-intercept is 0. It has to be, otherwise this won't make any sense, okay? And remember, I'm graphing this, and I mean, it's a negative 1/2 x. My slope is negative 1/2. So that's going to have a downward slope. It's going to go through the center. But remember, x is greater than 0. So we're only going to graph it when x is positive. This is my x, right? When x is positive, we're on this side, okay? So starting at 0, 0, because that's my y-intercept, I go down 1, and then to the right, 1, 2. So I have a point here. Going through this point is the line that we're working with. And I have, this went down, our x is 2, our y is negative 1. X equals 2, y equals negative 1. And then we can do our trig functions from there. We should know how to do all of those. So what's happening is this is making a right angle here. And you could think of SOHCAHTOA, which is the sine is the opposite side over your hypotenuse. Well, and that gets me thinking, I need r. This value here, my radius or my hypotenuse. So to do that, this value is 2, this value is negative 1. So I need to do a squared plus b squared is c squared, right? Pythagorean theorem equals r squared, okay? So we plug in, a can be 2 squared plus b is negative 1 squared equals r squared. This is 4. Negative 1 squared is 1 equals r squared. 5 equals r squared. Take the square root of both sides. Square root of 5 equals r. Okay? From there, we can do our trig function. So now, technically this angle, theta, is all the way somewhere in the 4th quadrant here. So keep that in mind. We've got, for our sine, we don't know the angle, but we call it theta, the angle theta. I could think of opposite of the angle over the hypotenuse. And remember, r is root 5. So negative 1 over root 5. Okay. But I did this example because we can't have a square root in the denominator. So we have to rationalize the denominator by multiplying by root 5 over root 5. If you've taken some algebra, you've seen this before. Okay, this is going to be negative 1 times root 5 is negative root 5 over root 5 times root 5 is 5. That's how you get rid of the radical in the denominator. So the sine of theta is negative 5 over root 5. Okay, cosecant of theta is the reciprocal of sine. So go back to this one, and you're just going to flip the top and the bottom. So it's going to be negative still. Root 5 over 1 is just negative root 5. So cosecant is the reciprocal of sine. That's very easy. Okay, next, cosine. Cosine And again, it's x over r, and sine is y over r. So think of your y coordinate over your r. Cosine is x over r, or you can think of adjacent over hypotenuse. The adjacent to the angle over the hypotenuse. So that's going to be 2 over root 5. Same problem, I have to rationalize the denominator and multiply by root 5 over root 5. I get 2 root 5 over root 5 times root 5 is 5. Okay, so that's your cosine. Note, sine is negative in quadrant 4. So the y value is negative. So you should have a negative value here. Cosine, and we're going to talk more about this in the next video, is positive in quadrant 4 because the x is positive. We'll get more into that. Cosine, the reciprocal is secant. Secant theta equals, now just flip these, root 5 over 2. Okay? It's that easy. Secant is positive when cosine is positive because they are reciprocals. Then we have, tangent. Tangent is going to be y over x, or you can think of TOA, opposite over adjacent. So opposite is negative 1 over the adjacent is 2. So it's simply negative 1/2, negative 1 over 2. Or you can think of y is negative 1 over x is 2. Tangent is negative 1/2. Cotangent is just the reciprocal. So you just do negative 2 over 1, or just actually negative 2. We could leave it at that. Okay? So that is number 5 in section 1.3. A lot going on there, so take note of this video. You can rewind it and watch it again. Thank you.